At 55, Marco thought his professional life was over. After being fired from a company where he had worked for over 30 years, he found himself lost, aimless, and with an uncertain future ahead of him. What he didn't know at the time, however, was that this dismissal would be the best thing that ever happened to him, and even more surprisingly, it would be the starting point for an empire. Have you ever wondered what you would do if you were fired from a job you had known for decades? Or do you believe that, after a certain age, there is no chance of reinventing your professional life? Marco proved that, contrary to what many people think, age is not an obstacle to starting from scratch. On the contrary, it was the experience and resilience acquired over the years that became his greatest assets, and not the limiting aspects that society imposes on those who are past middle age. Marco felt the impact of the dismissal like a strong blow. It was weeks of uncertainty, where doubt took over every thought. He knew he didn't have much time to complain. His life was at stake, and he needed to find a new direction. But what to do from there? What immediately terrified him the most was the feeling that he no longer had the right tools to move forward. Am I still capable of learning something new? He thought, remembering the decades he spent working in a single sector, always staying in a comfort zone. It was in the silence of his home, during one of these moments of reflection, that Marco realized something important. He had a vast experience that many considered an advantage. Over the years, he had accumulated a deep understanding of how business worked, sales strategies, and what really drove companies to success. But he knew one thing for sure: all of that needed to be transformed into something new, something that no longer depended on a boss or a large office. At 55 years old, the first thing Marco did was to transform his skills into something concrete. He already knew how to deal with people, how to solve problems, and above all, how to make quick decisions in critical moments. However, he also understood that he would need to innovate to build something from scratch. His experience was no longer enough on its own. He would need to reinvent himself. Marco decided to found a business consultancy focused on small and medium-sized companies that, like him, were looking for new paths. The idea arose as a necessity more than a desire. The journey was not easy. At first, Marco did not have the necessary resources nor a large support team. He started with a simple website, some pamphlets, and of course, his own network of contacts. He made a point of leveraging his name and his career, seeking to build credibility in the area in which he was already immersed. However, the key to success, he discovered, was not only in his skills, but in the way he used them to create something relevant for others. Over the first few months, Marco realized something crucial. Small and medium-sized companies had a huge demand for strategic guidance, but they could rarely afford the expensive services of large consultancies. This gap in the market was an opportunity that Marco did not let slip away. He began offering affordable solutions, personalized consulting, and customer service that prioritized direct relationships. He wasn't just selling knowledge. He was offering a unique experience, something that the larger market couldn't yet deliver. But success didn't come without challenges. Marco faced criticism, especially from those closest to him, who believed he was taking too many risks at a stage in his life when stability seemed like the most sensible option. Some said he should be content with what he had achieved and that it was time to slow down. But Marco was determined to show that age shouldn't be seen as a limitation, but rather as an advantage. He knew that his worldview was broader, that his past mistakes became valuable lessons for the new business. He was creating in a market where people often feel lost between big offers and empty promises. Marco decided to be different. He focused on customer service so personalized that he made each client feel unique and special. He wasn't selling generic solutions. He was adapting his approach to what each business really needed. This caused his reputation to grow rapidly. With each satisfied client, Marco got a little closer to his goal. When he landed his first significant contract with a small company that was on the verge of bankruptcy, he knew he was on the right track. The transformation of that company was his turning point. Marco's work helped to reorganize the company's structure, improve management, and reduce unnecessary costs while increasing sales. This success was what really catapulted Marco's consultancy to the next level. He was no longer alone in this process. Over the years, as the business grew, Marco hired specialists in various areas, such as digital marketing, finance, and people management. But he never lost focus on human relationships, something he always considered to be the key to true success. He knew that behind every business were people with their own dreams, challenges, and needs. For him, it wasn't just about numbers and spreadsheets. It was about helping people achieve their own dreams. Little by little, Marco earned the respect of the market. His consultancy became a reference for those seeking not only solutions, but a genuine approach focused on the specific needs of each client. He was also invited to speak at events and share his story. With each new challenge, he felt more motivated. He had overcome the idea that at 55 a person's professional life was over. He was writing a new chapter in his story, and this story had no expiration date. As the consultancy expanded, Marco felt more confident and even excited about the new possibilities. He had found a way to transform his experience and knowledge into a business that not only supported him, but helped thousands of other companies grow and prosper. In the end, the main lesson he learned was that it's not about the age at which you start, but about the willingness to learn, adapt, and keep moving forward, regardless of the obstacles. Marco knew that building his empire depended not only on his skills or the strategy he was using, but also on the ability to build genuine relationships. In the early months, he was so focused on making things happen that he often neglected the human side of the business. This was something he learned quickly, especially when he realized that, although his expertise had led his consultancy to a level of success, without a good relationship with his clients, none of this would have been possible. It was during a crisis at one of the companies he worked for that Marco realized the profound importance of trust. He was working with a small family bakery that was on the verge of bankruptcy. The owner, Donna Maria, was already so frustrated with the financial challenges that she had practically lost hope. During a meeting, she vented about her fear of losing the family business and the employees who had always trusted her. Marco, who was already used to dealing with big numbers and results, saw something more important there: the human impact of business decisions. From then on, Marco began to listen more than he spoke to understand what really motivated his clients. He began to engage in their stories, not just their strategies, and he became an advisor more than a consultant. This made all the difference. The first step to gaining true trust was to listen carefully and show that he cared about each entrepreneur's dreams and challenges. The transformation of Donna Maria's bakery, which managed to not only get back on its feet, but also increase its sales by 30% after some strategic and cultural changes, became a perfect example of how his business was not just about money, but about people. Trust was essential, but another thing that Marco learned over time was the importance of building a solid support network. Throughout his career, he had always known the importance of networking, but now he saw it differently. It was not just about making contacts, but about cultivating true partnerships. He made a point of building relationships with other entrepreneurs, with people from different areas, and even with his own competitors. The idea was not to compete, but to join forces, learn from others, and even collaborate on projects that benefited everyone. At some point, Marco felt he needed to expand, that his consulting firm was no longer meeting the demands of his clients, and that in order to grow he would need a more structured team. But he knew that hiring the right people wasn't just about technical skills, it was also about values. He wanted people who shared his vision, his commitment to service excellence, and his passion for helping others thrive. He hired each team member based on these principles. He looked for people who had the same empathy, who saw challenges as opportunities, and who were willing to grow with him. This expansion brought a series of new challenges. Marco found himself dealing with managing a team, sharing responsibilities, and making more complex decisions. But he was prepared because throughout his career, he had learned to deal with uncertainty and be resilient. He also knew that he needed to delegate more, trust others, and give his team autonomy. This made the business more agile and efficient. As the company grew, Marco himself began to step back from the day-to-day operations. He began to act as a mentor to his team, helping each one find their own vision and develop professionally. Marco's transformation was not only professional, but also personal. He began to understand that the success of his empire was directly linked to his ability to evolve and adapt not only to the market, but to himself. He recognized that the fear of being fired, the insecurity, and the obstacles he faced were just starting points for a journey that would extend far beyond what he had imagined. And what he learned most was that success does not come only from brilliant ideas or perfect actions, but from the ability to genuinely relate to the people around you. His clients' trust grew as he demonstrated not only his knowledge, but also his commitment to their success. He always had transparency as a principle, and this made his clients feel truly safe when making decisions with him. When Marco's empire reached new heights, he knew that it would not have been possible without the people who supported him from the beginning and who trusted him, whether as a client, partner, or collaborator. The support network that Marco had built over the years became one of the greatest strengths of his empire. He had a team in his company that was not only committed to his goals, but also believed in the mission of helping others transform their own businesses. He had transformed his story of loss and frustration into one of connection and collaboration. No longer the entrepreneur who feared being discarded. He was now a mentor, someone who had given new meaning to entrepreneurship, a journey made hand in hand with those who shared the same dream. Marco's legacy was built on a solid foundation of resilience, trust, and an unbeatable network of people with aligned values. He knew that the key to his success was to never forget the value of human relationships, something he always considered more important than any award or recognition in the business world. In this way, he not only created an empire, but also cultivated an environment where the success of everyone involved was closely linked to his own. Marco was at an inflection point in his journey. His consultancy was thriving, but he knew that his success so far had not been a fluke. Much of his career path had been about bold decisions, the ability to see opportunities where others saw only challenges. He also knew that the market was constantly changing and that the only way to ensure that his empire continued to grow was to constantly innovate. But innovation, he understood, was not just about technology or revolutionary business models. For him, true innovation lay in the way he dealt with people and the company's own internal processes. One of the first significant changes that Marco implemented was in his management approach. Although he had built a reliable and talented team, he did not want his company to become just another bureaucratic machine, where decisions were made based solely on numbers and reports. For Marco, the key was to create an environment where creativity was valued and where employees' ideas could become part of the decision-making process. That's how he started holding weekly meetings where any team member, regardless of their position, could present ideas, suggestions, and solutions to the company's challenges. These meetings, Initially seen as a risk by some of the more conservative team members, soon became a strong point of the consultancy. They not only encouraged a culture of innovation, but also strengthened the bond between team members. Everyone felt more engaged, more motivated to contribute their own ideas, and this, in turn, generated a cycle of continuous improvement. Marco was convinced that the best solutions emerged from collaborative work and not just from decisions made at the top of the company. In addition, he did not limit himself to applying innovations in his own business. Marco began to look outside at the market in which he operated and soon identified a growing trend: the impact of technology on small and medium-sized companies. Many of these companies, which were his target, were struggling to adapt to the advance of digitalization. The solutions were often too expensive or too complicated for the size of these companies. Marco saw this as an opportunity to not only add value to his clients, but also to position his consultancy more strategically in the market. That's when he decided to expand his operations to include a technology consulting business focused on affordable solutions for small businesses. He knew this would require a significant investment in training and learning, but his vision for the future kept him going. Marco began to form partnerships with technology companies where he could not only provide the support needed for digital transformation, but also introduce cheaper and easier to implement tools. He believed that technology should be an ally for growth, not an obstacle for those without a large budget. This change was a turning point. In addition to diversifying his service offering, Marco was able to stand out even more in the market. He began to be recognized not only as a business consultant, but also as a visionary who understood the specific needs of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. He began to receive invitations to speak on the importance of digital transformation in small businesses and was approached by other consultants who wanted to understand how he had managed to incorporate technology in such an efficient and affordable way. The new path that Marco chose also brought him unexpected challenges. The technology industry required a steeper learning curve, and at times he felt unsure whether he was making the right decisions. But instead of giving up, he applied the same learn-by-doing mentality that had helped him early in his career. Marco invested time in courses, attended events, and surrounded himself with experts who could help him implement innovations more effectively. He knew that in order to continue growing, he would need to adapt to changing market demands. One of the biggest lessons Marco learned was that true innovation comes not only from the original idea, but from the execution and adaptation of those ideas to the real needs of the market. There is no point in having a brilliant idea if it is not implemented effectively. He learned to adjust his services based on constant feedback from his clients, and to keep his consultancy agile and adaptable to the rapid changes that the business world imposed. Looking back, Marco saw that the decisions he made along the way were fundamental to the growth of his empire. But he also knew that the road ahead would not be any easier. New trends in the market, technological changes, and customer expectations were constantly evolving, and he would need to keep reinventing himself. Marco did not see this as a burden, but as a constant opportunity to improve his own skills and the service he offered. As his consultancy became increasingly prominent, he began to think about the future. How could he keep his company relevant in the face of so much uncertainty? Marco knew that his mission was not only to achieve success, but to ensure that his company was able to evolve with the times. He committed to never stop learning and to always keep his company ahead of change. Innovation for him was not just a business strategy, but a philosophy of life. Marco's success was not built solely on bold decisions or marketing strategies. His empire was founded on a solid foundation of knowledge, constant innovation, and a deep understanding of people's needs. Marco not only transformed his own life, but also helped many others achieve their goals, showing that it is possible to start over, grow, and innovate at any stage of life. He became an example for all those who believed that the time for creating something great had passed. Marco proved that with the right mindset, there is no limit to what one can achieve. Marco had always known that achieving true success required more than vision or a good product. He had invested in human relationships, adapting to market changes and constant innovation. But now he found himself facing a challenge that could not be solved with business strategies alone. His empire was going strong, but he knew that to stay relevant and prosperous, it was necessary to do more than just follow trends. It was necessary to set a new standard. He wanted to go further, to create a lasting legacy that was not just financial, but something that would positively impact the people around him and inspire others to follow suit. That was when Marco began to reflect on the impact he could make, not only on the business itself, but on the lives of the people who crossed his path. He understood that true success was not measured solely by the numbers he put up in his consulting business or the number of companies he helped prosper, but by how he changed the mindsets of the people around him. He wanted to transform the way entrepreneurs viewed themselves and their businesses, helping them realize that success did not depend on age, circumstances, or a single great idea, but on the ability to constantly reinvent oneself and learn from one's mistakes. Marco's new vision materialized into an even more ambitious project: the creation of a foundation focused on supporting entrepreneurs just starting out or people who, like him, faced insecurity and doubt after being fired or having a failure. The foundation's goal was to provide guidance, training, and resources to those who wanted to start from scratch but didn't know how to take the first step. Marco knew that, throughout his own journey, many aspects of his success were influenced by his own experience and the help of others who believed in him. He wanted to do the same for others. The project began with short lectures, discussion groups, and mentoring sessions. Marco shared his own story, showing how the dismissal that had shaken him so much at the time became the starting point for an incredible journey. He wanted people to see that there is no right age or time to start, that the secret was to believe in yourself, adapt to changes, and above all, stay brave in the face of obstacles. Marco became a mentor not only in the business world, but also in the personal lives of many of these people, offering not only advice but also the emotional support needed to overcome difficult times. Marco's foundation was an immediate success. Over the years, thousands of entrepreneurs have gone through his programs, many of them managing to create thriving businesses and even radically transform their lives. But the impact that touched Marco the most was not only the financial success stories. What really made him feel like he was fulfilling his mission was hearing from people who, after participating in his foundation, had found a new purpose and a new outlook on life. Many said they had started the business not just to make a profit, but to follow a dream they didn't even know they still had. Marco's vision, once a fearful man after losing his job, had transformed into something bigger. He began to see the business world as an opportunity to impact society in a deeper and more meaningful way. By creating an environment of support and transformation, he helped many understand that true victory was not in being the richest or most famous, but in helping others grow and find their own path. For many, he became a reference not only for success, but for generosity and courage. As the years passed, Marco realized that his empire was much more than just the consulting firm and the foundation. The legacy he was building was rooted in the change in mindset he promoted. He was not only helping companies thrive, but he was cultivating a culture of collaboration, valuing people, and adapting to the circumstances that life imposed on them. Marco had become an example that, regardless of age, anyone can start over. learn, and create something extraordinary. Today, Marco's name is not only associated with a successful company, but with a story of overcoming obstacles and personal and professional transformation. He managed to prove that, at 55 years old, life was not over. On the contrary, it was just beginning. He continued his journey without looking back, always focused on learning, innovating, and sharing what he knew with others. Looking back on his trajectory, Marco knew that his empire was more than a set of companies or financial achievements. He had created something intangible, something that could not be measured only with numbers or market indicators. Marco's empire was an empire of people, of dreams realized, and of transformed lives. He knew that the true essence of success was in helping others discover their own ability to transform their challenges into opportunities. And so, with each story of overcoming that he helped to write, Marco felt that his mission was increasingly fulfilled. He not only created an empire, but planted seeds that would continue to flourish for generations. If you were inspired by Marco's story and believe that it is possible to transform your life at any time, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Here, we always bring more inspiring stories and valuable tips for those who are ready to start over and achieve their dreams. Click the subscribe button and join us on this journey of growth and transformation.